Sure that what? That I'm not marrying you for your money?
It's just procedure. You know how my parents are. They just want to be sure.
Dear, we mean no offense. It's just, these things protect everyone.
They all looked at her as if she didn't belong. A woman in a tailored navy suit, calm as still water, holding a pen that could change everything. Her name was Vanessa Carter, and in less than a week, she was supposed to marry into one of the wealthiest families in Atlanta. But today, they were making her sign a prenup. The family's lawyer sat at the polished mahogany table, sliding the thick stack of papers toward her. Across the table, her fiancé, Daniel Whitmore, looked uncomfortable. His parents, however, looked proud of themselves. Protective, smug even. Vanessa smiled politely. Her deep brown eyes didn't flicker, not even once. She had faced tougher rooms before, but none of them had worn pearls and judgment in equal measure. It's just procedure, Daniel said, trying to sound calm. You know how my parents are. They just want to be sure. Sure that what? Vanessa interrupted softly. That I'm not marrying you for your money? The room fell silent. Even the air conditioner seemed to pause. Daniel's mother cleared her throat. Dear, we mean no offense. It's just, these things protect everyone. Vanessa nodded. Of course, she said, protection is important. But the way she said it, like she already knew more than they ever would, made even the lawyer look up from his papers. Vanessa grew up in a small neighborhood on the south side, raised by her grandmother, who owned a tiny bakery. Her grandmother used to say, never let anyone make you feel small just because your dreams are big. Vanessa carried that wisdom with her through every boardroom, every sleepless night, every deal she closed to build her company, a quiet empire she never boasted about. But she remembered the people who doubted her. She remembered the men who told her she'd get further if she smiled more. And now here she was, engaged to a man she truly loved, and sitting in front of people who couldn't see her worth beyond the surface. Still, she kept her calm, because power doesn't always need to shout. That evening, the Whitmores hosted a family dinner, or rather a subtle performance of wealth and control. The chandelier sparkled above long tables, silver cutlery gleamed, and conversations were as cold as the marble floors. Vanessa sat beside Daniel, trying to enjoy the evening, but she could feel the eyes on her, measuring, calculating. Every question came wrapped in politeness and hidden meaning. So, Vanessa, what do you do again? I'm in business, she replied with a smile. Oh, what kind of business? The kind that pays for dinners like this, she said gently. There were polite chuckles, though Daniel's mother looked less amused. Vanessa didn't elaborate. She didn't need to. Later that night, after the guests had gone, Daniel found Vanessa standing on the balcony. The city lights below painted her in soft gold. You know I love you, right? He said quietly. Of course, she replied. Then sign it, please. It's just to make them happy. Once it's done, we can move on. Vanessa turned to him. There was no anger in her voice, just calm strength. Daniel, I've built my entire life proving myself to people who never believed in me. I'm not afraid of contracts, but I want you to know something. What's that? I don't need your money. I need your respect. Daniel swallowed hard. He reached for her hand, but she pulled back gently. I'll sign it, she said. But remember, what you think you're protecting, you might already owe. He didn't understand what she meant. Not yet. The next morning, she arrived at the Whitmore law firm to finalize the paperwork. The lawyer greeted her with the same patronizing smile he'd given the day before. Good morning, Miss Carter. Let's get this over with. She signed the papers gracefully, every page, every initial. And when she was done, she looked up at him and said, You work for Whitmore Holdings, right? He nodded. Yes, ma'am. Been their legal counsel for years. Vanessa smiled faintly. Interesting, because my company acquired Whitmore Holdings 3 months ago. The man froze. I'm sorry, but what? Check your emails, she said, standing up. You'll see the new ownership documentation. I kept the old name. It carries good history. She walked out, heels clicking against the marble floor, leaving behind silence thick enough to taste. By the time Daniel called her, news was already spreading through the family chat. Vanessa, what's going on? You'll find out soon, she said gently. Let's talk at the wedding. He sounded confused, nervous, but she stayed calm. She wasn't doing this for revenge. She was doing it to remind them who she truly was. That night, she sat by her grandmother's old photograph and whispered, "You were right, Grandma. Never let anyone make you feel small." And somewhere in the city, Daniel's parents were realizing that the woman they thought needed their protection was the very reason their legacy still stood. The next day, the wedding venue buzzed with whispers. Reporters, socialites, family members, all talking about the prenup woman who owned the company. Vanessa arrived in a simple white gown, calm as ever. The music started. Daniel stood waiting, but before she walked down the aisle, she stopped, pulled out a small envelope, and handed it to her maid of honor. "If anything happens, give this to Daniel after the vows." Before we continue, take a moment to breathe this in. How many times have people underestimated you just because they didn't know your story? Now, back to Vanessa's story. The music was soft, the whispers weren't. Everyone in that grand hall had heard the rumor that the bride standing at the end of the aisle wasn't just the fiancé, she was the boss. But no one knew the full story. Not yet. Vanessa woke early that morning, sunlight spilling through her hotel window. She sat by the mirror, quiet, reflecting. Today wasn't just her wedding day. It was the day she decided who she would be. A wife, a leader, a woman who owned her peace. Her phone buzzed with messages, friends sending love, business partners sending congratulations, and one text from Daniel's mother that read simply, "We need to talk before the ceremony." Vanessa took a deep breath and typed back, "Of course, Ugramanis." When she arrived at the family suite, Daniel's parents were waiting. The mood was different now. No superiority, no smugness, just confusion. His father spoke first. "Vanessa, we didn't know. We didn't realize you were involved in the company." Vanessa smiled softly. "You didn't ask." His mother looked uneasy. "We only wanted to protect Daniel. You understand that, don't you?" "I do," Vanessa said calmly, "and that's why I signed the prenup. Protection works both ways." She paused, her voice gentle but firm. "I never wanted your son for his money. I wanted him for his heart. But when you look at me, all you see is a gold digger, someone trying to take something that was never mine." Silence filled the room, heavy, thoughtful. Vanessa continued, "The truth is, I built my company from nothing. I started with a laptop that overheated and a coffee shop Wi-Fi connection. I worked through nights when I didn't even have enough for a taxi home. The company you thought I wanted a piece of," she smiled faintly, "became mine before I ever met Daniel." The wedding began at noon. Strings played softly as guests filled the hall, their curiosity almost louder than the music. Vanessa walked down the aisle slowly, holding her grandmother's locket, a symbol of every woman who had been told she wasn't enough. Her steps were steady, graceful, powerful. Daniel stood waiting, his expression unreadable, part nervous, part in awe. When she reached him, he whispered, "You look beautiful." "So do you," she replied with a smile. The pastor began the vows, his voice echoing through the hall. When it was Vanessa's turn to speak, she took a deep breath and turned not just to Daniel, but to the entire room. "Before I say I do, I want to say something." The crowd quieted instantly. "When I first met Daniel, I didn't see wealth. I saw kindness. I saw a man who listened. But along the way, I realized the people around us saw something different. They saw what they thought I wanted, not who I am." Her voice didn't tremble. It soared, calm and proud. "A contract can't define love. It can't measure integrity. A prenup doesn't protect hearts, only assets. But the truth is," she looked straight at Daniel, tears glimmering in her eyes, "I never needed your protection. I just needed your partnership." The audience stirred, some teary-eyed, some speechless. "And for those who doubted me, I hope today reminds you that respect should never depend on titles or bank accounts. Because the moment you underestimate someone, you might just be standing in the empire they built." A soft gasp moved through the crowd. The pastor, unsure whether to proceed, finally smiled. "Well," he said gently, "I believe we can continue." After the ceremony, Daniel pulled her aside, away from the cameras, the noise, the stares. Vanessa, I had no idea. You never told me. I wanted you to love me for me, she said softly. Not the company, not the title. He nodded slowly, realization sinking in. I'm sorry I didn't defend you. I should have. She smiled, not with anger, but forgiveness. We both learned something. You learned to listen, and I learned that real power isn't proving people wrong. It's choosing peace when you could choose pride. He reached for her hand again, and this time she didn't pull away. I love you, he whispered. Then let's start from there, she said. As the guests toasted champagne, Daniel's father walked toward Vanessa, his voice quieter now. Miss Carter, or should I say Mrs. Whitmore, I owe you an apology. She smiled warmly. No apologies needed, just mutual respect moving forward. He nodded, humbled. You have it. Vanessa turned to Daniel and whispered, see, sometimes the best way to win isn't to fight. It's to stand tall until they see you. He smiled. You always did know how to make an entrance. And an exit, she added playfully. Weeks later, a photograph went viral online. Vanessa and Daniel standing side by side at a company charity gala. The caption read, Love built on respect lasts longer than any contract. The video clip of her wedding speech began trending under tags like #empowered love, #life lesson, #respect her, and #true story vibes. The kind of emotional storytelling YouTube thrives on. People across generations shared it. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was real. A reminder that class, grace, and love never go out of style, and that the strongest woman in the room doesn't always raise her voice. She simply owns the room. In life, you'll meet people who question your worth. Some will test your patience. Others will doubt your strength. But when you know who you are, no paper, no opinion, and no contract can take that from you. Vanessa didn't marry for money. She married for peace. And in doing so, she showed the world that the greatest wealth is dignity. If this story is speaking to your spirit right now, go ahead and tap that like button. Not for the algorithm, but to remind yourself that grace and strength always win in the end. And if you believe in stories that celebrate love, respect, and real empowerment, hit subscribe so you never miss one.